Hello, we're here. We are live. We're doing a thing. It is somehow August 20th. My goodness, how did we get here? Welcome to my Tuesday Live. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Hi, Nico. As usual, I'm going to just talk about the things that are on my brain today, unless you have other questions, particular to the stuff you're working on, which feel free to put that in the chat and let me know if you have any questions about singing in general, the nervous system, me and what I do. Here for you. But the thing that has been coming up the most this week, I think, is how do we make choices for our artistry as opposed to what should be done? Because that is what's on a lot of people's minds most of the time when they're singing something, when they're learning a new song, when they're writing a song, when they're doing a cover of somebody else's song. They think a lot about what should be done. And I'm, again, as always, talking to myself here, because we live so much in the world of shoulds when we're singing most of the time, especially if you are here, if you're a perfectionist, if you're an overthinker, if you are a go doer person like me, if you have anxiety at all, like so much of what comes into our brains when we're thinking is what should I be doing, and how your gremlin is always focused on like, what else can I hone in on that is wrong, right? That is wrong. I mean, like, there's really not a lot of things that are actually wrong when you're singing. Sure, you can be off pitch. Sure, you can strain. Sure, you can sing something that is not the same as the original singer. But is that wrong? Question mark. It is so subjective, you know. The only thing that I always say, like, the only thing that is wrong in my book is if you're doing something that is actively hurting yourself, because that is not terribly sustainable, right? And that's also up in the air, because some singers, like, the only way they identify as, you know, hitting those big notes is like, yeah, it's gonna hurt a little bit, but just for a second, you know. And I'm not condoning singing when it hurts, of course, but sometimes you're gonna have a little feeling of strain. If you're hitting one of those big notes, you're gonna feel tightness, and tightness is different than strain. Discomfort is different than pain, so keep those boundaries in mind when you are singing. But nothing is really wrong unless you are actively hurting yourself and injuring your voice, because of course we want to keep singing forever, right? That's the intention. So you want to keep singing into your 80s, so you got to take care of your dang instrument and your beautiful mechanism that you have been given. So that's really what's the only should in this area, right, when you're singing. So when you are thinking about creating something, whether it's your own version of somebody else's song or your own actual song that you created, or you're just singing for fun, you're just jamming with friends, that's creating. You're always in the flow of creating, right? In those moments, letting go of the should is our default, especially if you're anything like me. Like, if you are a perfectionist, if you have any kind of CPTSD, if you have any kind of anxiety, there's always a should, right? There's always this little voice in your head telling you what you're doing is wrong. You're not doing enough. You're not doing good enough, loud enough, fast enough, pretty enough, all those things. It's the default pathway in your brain, right? For whatever reason that is for you. Some people it's brain chemistry, some people it's trauma, etc., etc. Doesn't really matter in my world. Please talk with a therapist about it. However, that is really important. But I don't need to know the reason behind things. I just want to know how we can help create a new pathway, right? So I ask a lot of questions. Where do you feel that in your body? Where do you feel this energy of should come in? So for some people, that energy of should, like, if I'm going for this big high note, for example, that should energy usually comes in in the form of these extrinsic vocal muscles, like overexerting, right? And so they push and push and push. And so I overhit the note. I push too hard because I really want the power of it. And I am thinking that I'm not going to make it. So I overdo instead of just allowing the note to come out. Sorry, I thought there was a bug or something. So that energy of should shows up in my body as over-tension, right? Over-efforting in these muscles. Some people, it shows up in their jaw. They have a really tight jaw, right? So they do runs with their jaw, like, or they don't open their mouth a whole lot, like, so everything is kind of just here, which is not inherently a bad thing either. But if you want a little more resonation, a little more power, sometimes it is necessary to have a little more space, right? So we have to find where there is tension in your body, and if that's in your jaw, great. Some people it's your tongue. Some people your tongue really likes to get in the way, and that energy of what should I be doing better? How can I force this into sounding how I want it to sound because I don't trust myself to make it sound that way? Then that energy translates into your tongue being tight and oftentimes pulling up and back really hard. And as some of you may know, your tongue is a really big muscle that connects all the way down here, which in this down here is your vocal folds and your larynx. So your tongue muscle, if it's tight, like right now, if you swallow, that's your tongue muscle tightening and pulling back a little bit, and you feel that connection. You feel your larynx pop up a little bit because it is pulled up with that mechanism. And so if you have any tongue tightness, if your tongue wants to get involved in the process of singing, which a lot of times I know a lot of people who that is the case for them, myself included. So your tongue is carrying out that energy of you're doing it wrong for your gremlin. And so it is over involved and over pushing. Often can feel like your pharynx kind of closing in a little bit. And if you keep thinking open, 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 it may not help if it's your tongue, right? Because you can be relaxing these muscles, but your tongue is pulling back into that space of your throat, that space of your pharynx. And so that is actually what's closing, not these muscles. So sometimes we got to look different places to see where that energy comes into our body. Some people, the energy of should comes into your shoulders, right? And we go like this and we tighten up to get those big notes. Some people, it ripple effects into your face, right? So if you're going for a big note, you go, right, scrunch face. And it's really interesting to sing in front of a mirror or video yourself, like turn your phone around so you can't see while you're singing and then watch yourself back later. Because you'll notice where that energy of should and fixing and manipulation comes into your body. So I think once you know that, I think the first step is to not allow the judgment to invade, right? Because your gremlin, again, it's a part of you. It's just trying to keep you safe, but it's going to come in and immediately go, what's wrong with you? Why did you do that? That's a problem. I don't want you to allow that feeling to stay in your body. It's totally a normal reaction to have when you see yourself doing something or having extra tension in your body. But we're not shaming the tension. That is a biological reaction to your thoughts that you're having, right? Makes total sense. So it's not your fault. It's not a problem. However, we can start to adjust and make different choices and find a little more freedom in your body than maybe you were before. And that's what I do all the time in here. And you know this, if you are one of my students, if you're working with me, that's my goal, is for you to, number one, know what your patterns are so you can unshame them and stop thinking that it's a problem and it's your fault, because that's more should energy, right? It's just shooting on the shoulds, right? And then after you acknowledge and unshame, then we start to be like, oh, that's interesting. I'm a scientist now instead of a judge. And I'm going to go, oh, look, that's happening again. Fascinating to see where that shows up, right? Oh, it showed up on this high note. Oh, it showed up on this big belty note. Oh, it showed up on this run. Interesting. Okay, now I know that that's going to happen. I'm going to go back and try it a different way, notice that maybe I have jaw tension that pops in on that note. So I'm going to, on purpose, think about releasing these muscles. I'm going to do some exercises maybe before that to remind myself how that feels. You can give yourself a little jaw massage. And then I'm going to try this passage again, putting that need to control energy, that manipulation energy that is behind the should energy, somewhere else in my body. So a lot of the time I'll have people bend their knees because that still gives your body the feeling that it is doing something about the perceived problem, but your knee bends is not going to affect what your vocal mechanism is doing because it's so low in your body, right? Anything above the bottom rib here, if you engage those, it's going to do very little to affect what your vocal folds are doing, what your larynx is doing. But if you allow it to come into the top half of your body, like this, like the jaw, like the tongue, it might affect it because these things are all related in it, and pulling happens and secondary reactions happen and all that stuff. But I always use the knee bend because when you bend your knees, when you press your feet into the ground if you're sitting, you feel your low abs start to engage. And that is actually, instead of getting in the way and pulling and messing with your mechanism, it's actually supporting the fuel mechanism that's underneath, right? It's supporting your abs, which support your diaphragm, which support your lungs, which supports your air, your foundation. It's most of what we are looking for when we're looking for power in those big notes and those runs and those belty parts. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for power, but so often our default is to find that power in these little teeny muscles instead of these big muscles underneath your bottom rib. So that's what we're looking for when we are defaulting to over-engaging in this around the mechanism, the vocal mechanism. So we want to take that need to control and manipulate in this should energy, this gremlin need to fix before anything bad even happens. And we're going to put it down here in our lower body. We're going to send it to the ground, push your feet into the ground, send that energy down. So you're grounding yourself. You have a connection now between the top half of your body and the bottom half of your body. I always liken it to like putting a Lego man all the way together, right? A Lego man can't do much if he's just a torso and a head, but you have to connect your lower half of your body to it, and then you can go wherever you want. So that's the idea. So the energy of should, like, we're probably not going to get rid of it. Again, as I say, it's just your biology. Your nervous system is feeling some type of way about this note that's about to happen, and so it needs to do something about the situation. But your job is to say, okay, I hear you. Yes, we're going to do something about it, but we're going to do something about it from a place in my body that is going to help that note happen instead of stop that note from happening the way I want it to and get in the way of that mechanism. I'm going to put that need to control as a fuel for the fire instead of trying to go faster by pushing on my steering wheel. That's what I liken it to, right? So a lot of times that's just the default pattern that we get into. Like we're trying to have more power, so we push where we feel like the voice is coming from, which is here, which is trying to push into your steering wheel because this is your steering wheel. And when you're driving, what you want to do is just little supportive, teeny little movements. You're mostly just allowing the car to go where it needs to go, and you're just making teeny little adjustments as you go. But the gas pedal is down here, right? So this is the idea. We want to get out of the way of this mechanism and send that gas pedal into the bigger muscles down here, your low abs, your obliques. Sometimes your upper abs too, but mostly the lower ones are what we want to get firing, because that's the thing that most people are not thinking about. So that's why I use a lot of mechanisms from your speaking self, from your speaking experience, because that's where we know how to create power. And so we don't end up in this energy of, I don't know how to make power, so I'm just going to push it from here. Because you do know how to make power happen. You do it when you are, when you see somebody across the street and you're trying to get their attention, like, hey, right? You take a breath. Hey, if you try that, you feel your belly breath happen. You feel your abs release because your body knows that it's going to need those to help you get the sound out. And then you get into this space of, oh, I'm just making this very loud, powerful, healthy sound with practically no thought because I've been doing it my whole life, right? So we're going to bring that knowledge into singing, because so often we put all this pressure on singing and we're like, no, that's not how it works in singing. For some reason, I can't bring what I know about speaking and changing my sound in the speaking world into singing. That's totally different discipline, right? It's not. It's the same thing. You know how to use your voice. You know how to make character voices. You know how to use all different parts of your voice. It's just a matter of how often you do it, and you got to bring that into practice. So often when we're working on big belty notes, I have the person just speak it first. Like if you're all the way up at the top of your voice, like, hey, like you have to do a note that's up here and it feels like right up on the edge of your bridge and it keeps wobbling and you keep going, ah, you feel like you can't hold on to it. It's oftentimes because you feel there's this energy of, I'm not going to get it. I should make it happen from here. I should be able to make it even more powerful, but your body is going off of a pattern that is putting all this weight on it, right? There's so much pressure you're putting on this note for most of us, right? If that's you, raise your hand. So we put all this pressure on this note and we go squeeze, because that's what you feel like you need to do to make this note hold on for dear life, right? And so then the energy of this comes into these muscles and they hold on for dear life, or wherever it is for you, if it's your tongue or your jaw or your shoulders or whatever. And what I usually like to have people do is come at it from a place of, instead of singing because we put all this pressure and weight and fear around singing, go back to the speaking world and imagine like you just saw your friend across the playground when you were 10, right? Like, hey, Callie, do you want to play with me on the swings, right? Like we know how to do that. So we have to remind ourselves that we can create all this power. Whatever you want to do with your voice is, you probably have a lot less pressure around it when you're speaking. So we're going to bring that in and we're just going to speak it nice and long. So if you are trying to hit this note, hey, we're going to speak it first. I'm going to have you go, wow, oh my gosh. Nico, we did this, I think, last week. Hey, and you feel the ease and the openness that comes in here. And all you're doing to transfer from speaking to singing is you are just lengthening it. You're holding on to that space. And for me, that holding on is more of an allowing feeling. You're just holding the grounding, you're holding the foundation from underneath. And this part, this top half of your body, anything above your top, your bottom rib again, is in open mode, right? You're focused on your defaults, right? Your patterns. If you are a tongue clencher, you're focusing on releasing that tongue. If you're a jaw clencher, you're focusing on releasing that jaw. And the power, the should energy, you're transferring it underneath. So we just go, hey! And if you can hold that space for yourself over a longer note, you'll notice that need to control start to come in. So like some people, if you start practicing this, you'll notice like waves of this, oh my God, I'm doing it wrong, energy come in. And then your job is to be like, no, I got this, right? And it's going to come back. The gremlin's going to be like, are you sure you don't want to clench here to make this note last? And you're going to be like, nope, I got this. I have the foundation. I have everything I need. I'm going to do it the way that Sarah said, which is to let go instead of to push harder, right? And so it starts to become like this, and the more you can find that openness, every time you do it, you'll start to find more time in that space. It's like a baby bird learning how to fly, right? You find a little time up off the ground and then you come down to the ground. You find a little more time off the ground and you come down. So you're just working on these longer notes, just holding that space for yourself. And then all of a sudden you'll be belting like everybody, right? Like Adele, like Pink, like whoever you're trying to belt like. So that's how we work through this energy of should. It's not going to happen overnight. Like everything we do in here, it's little gradual movements, gradual training of your nervous system, because your nervous system has a default to do something to help you, whatever that looks like for you and your body. And your job is to be like, hey, I feel these external muscles starting to tighten up. I feel you, gremlin. I hear you. I know you want this note to be good. trust me. I trust me. I got this. You don't need to help me with this. I am going to create my foundation. I'm going to ground in. I'm going to open up here. And then everything else is just a practice of allowing, a practice of sitting in the imperfection, a practice of singing through the wobble, singing through the squeeze, and telling yourself, I got this, right? You're going to have moments of wobble. You're going to have moments of cracking. We got to unshame all of that. It's not a problem. You don't have to stop singing when those happen, because on the other side of that, when you tell yourself, I don't have to do anything, I should, there's no should here, I don't have to stop because I have a weird sound. On the other side of that is the sound that you're looking for, is the magic, is how every singer that's your favorite singer has gotten to be able to feel like it's so easy for them, right? You watch them and you're like, oh my God, why is it so easy for them? It's because they did this work of sitting in the muck, noticing when that should energy comes in and letting it the hell go. So there you are. There's a thing for you. I think you might have inspired this, Nico. So thank you for showing up. I see it. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Notice where that energy of should shows up in your body. Unshame it. Notice it, unshame it. Try something new. Don't stop when the weird sounds come. Keep going. Hold on to it and allow. Those are your 5 steps. You got it. I trust you. I love you very much, and I'll see you soon.